Welcome back, everyone. It is absolutely spectacular here today in Niagara Falls. And Carl and I are going to take the opportunity to go out for a ride today. So Carl and I are going to load up and head to Hamilton, Ontario today, where we are going to visit the Museum of Steam and Technology. Now, this is a place that I've wanted to visit for a number of years and have just never had the opportunity to do so. Now, I've been promising for a while that Carl and I are going to get up north and ride some logging roads around northern Ontario. We're still planning on doing that. But the reality is, for the past 2 months, my wife's been dealing with an injury where she broke 2 ankle bones in her right foot and has basically been immobilized. She still can't drive, and I've been looking after her for those 2 months, and it's really not fair for me to sort of take a week off and head up north when she has to fend for herself. So we've basically been limiting ourselves to local rides around the Niagara region. Now, the Hamilton Steam Museum is actually the location of the first water pumping pumps that supplied water to the city of Hamilton when there was about 27,000 people. Now, the ride up there is pretty much all hard surface. It's not really much of a dual sport ride, but it really is a beautiful place to ride too, with some scenic views overlooking Lake Ontario. And Carl and I did our best to capture that ride for you, as well as some of the interesting things within the Steam Museum itself. And of course, on the way home, we do stop for some pizza at Shorty's Pizza in Hamilton, which, in our humble opinion, is the best pizza we have ever eaten in Ontario. So sit back, enjoy yourself, grab a cool one if you want, and enjoy the ride today on Dino's Tinker Shed. Now, Carl and I fill the bikes up here at the local gas station just to make sure we have enough fuel so we don't have to stop later in the day. And we're going to head out through Thorold, Ontario. Now, most people that live in Niagara Falls know that during the summer months like this, it can be a little bit challenging driving around, but we navigate our way out through the city and all the way out heading towards Thorold on Thorold Stone Road. And this takes us up to the Welland Canal. Now, the Welland Canal, the one you see currently, is actually the 4th canal built to connect Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. And this particular tunnel was probably built in 1960s, 1970s as part of the Welland bypass. This 4th canal itself was built and completed in 1932 and handles about 3,000 ships per year, or about 40 million tons of cargo that pass over your head as you drive underneath the canal system. It's a pretty neat place to ride your bike through. And there's a couple other tunnels that you go under in the Niagara area, one up near Welland as well. So anyway, we're going to head out here and it exits out near Thorold, and again, look at the beautiful, beautiful sky. Now, after leaving through the Thorold Tunnel, we're going to come up and head towards the Niagara Escarpment. Now, the Niagara Escarpment is a long geological formation that basically runs from New York State all the way through Ontario, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan as well. And it's the result of unequal erosion between the native bedrock and sort of the softer material that's eroded over the years. But it provides some interesting riding opportunities as you go up and down the different levels. Now, the distance just between Lake Ontario and Lake Erie is about 330 feet in total height elevation, and it varies depending on what section of the escarpment you're on. Now, you can see here Carl and I are following this all downhill through bunches of switchbacks, and finally we come up through the valleys and into local areas, residential areas, as it travels and meanders its way around. Now, here is DeQ House and also DeQ Falls, where there's some historic buildings and a historic mill. And that takes us out into the countryside where we get to ride through vineyards all through the Niagara region. The Niagara viticulture industry is really growing in the last 20 to 30 years, and premier wines are released all across the world, including famous ice wine, which is only grown in a few places throughout the world. Now, as we head closer and closer to Hamilton, those vineyards turn into cornfields and soybean, as you can see here. And you can see the day is just absolutely stunning. Now this leads us into Carl and I's favorite way to ride. We call it the right, left, right, left, right, left ride, where basically we just take right and left turns all the way heading west, in this case, towards Hamilton. And we check the GPS every once in a while. And this leads us up to River Road overlooking Hamilton and Stony Creek here. So we're a few hundred feet above the Lake Ontario basin here, and the views are absolutely spectacular. The Insta360 here doesn't really do it justice for what you can see. And you know, there are some lookouts here, such as this one overlooking Hamilton. So Carl and I decided to stop for a quick look, just to give you a better idea of what the views are really like. You can see here, it is just stunning overlooking there. And Carl even found an old pair of glasses, makes him look like Elvis Costello here. So after leaving the lookout, we continue heading west and finally come up to the next escarpment cut that we're going to take down into Hamilton itself. And you can really see the geological differences as we cut down through the escarpment here and all the layers of sediment rock. Queenston limestone, as it's sometimes known, is world famous for some of its interesting features, and it's used in landscapes all over Ontario. And you can really see the entrance into Hamilton here is quite spectacular. Now we navigate our way through Hamilton here. Neither Carl or I are really too familiar with it, but we finally find our way over to Woodward Avenue, which is where we need to head to tour the museum. And in this case, we're heading east now, down through some of the more industrial areas of Hamilton. Now Hamilton's an awesome town. It's built on steel. It's a highly industrial town, and the people here are just solid. We stopped to get a drink here and ended up talking with one of the local gentlemen, and he was telling us everything from where to get pepperettes from local factories to great places to see in Hamilton. Just really good, solid people to visit with. So we travel down. You can see the waterworks, the new waterworks on the one side, and some of the more industrial areas as we get closer and closer to the Steam Museum here. And finally we arrive at the Museum of Steam and Technology. And it's right down near the Queen Elizabeth Way, and it is a really cool looking building. You can see it here as we ride up to it. That smokestack is visible from a long way away, and it was built that way. It really was built in a time when coal burning was thought to be very good for any city. It was a sign of wealth and industry, and so they built it taller than it had to be so you could see the coal smoke from a long way away. And the building itself is built sort of in an Italian influence. The smokestack is meant to look like a bell tower on a church, and it's quite ornate from the outside. And it's not as big as we originally thought. It looks really huge from the outside, and when you do get into the building, it actually feels a little bit smaller than what it looks like from the outside. It's a really cool place to visit. And I understand there's even a small miniature steam engine club that comes in and has sort of steam engine days on the property itself. We missed that. It was the following week. So as you head inside, you're welcome to where the boilers used to be. Here's kind of a rudimentary drawing of how the plant used to draw water from Lake Ontario and pump it up to a reservoir built about halfway up the escarpment. And this is actually the chimney flue that is in disrepair now. And here we're inside some of the workings of the pumping station. It was pretty neat. It's very dark and dingy in here. But you can see it's all built out of limestone, and the pumps themselves are built right into the building. It's not sort of a piece of equipment inside a building so much as it is one giant piece of equipment, with the building being part of the structure. And it's just a really cool place to visit. The architecture is awesome with fluted pillars. All of the piston rods are just very ornate, and you can see this giant 70-ton water pump running electrically now, no longer run by steam. But this used to provide all of the water for the fledgling city of Hamilton when it was only about 27,000 people. And this museum is maintained by the city of Hamilton. That it only costs $7 to tour this facility, and it's a guided tour for an hour. It is probably one of the best values I've ever had in a museum. And if you like tinkering on things like I do, the sheer size and complexity of this particular building is just really cool. Carl and I just really enjoyed ourselves, and our tour guide was amazing. She really was. So you can kind of see here how the building isn't quite as big as it looks from the outside. And I'm told this is the original desk for the original curator of the building, all the way back into the 1800s. So really, I will do this no justice giving you all the schematics. It is well worth coming and visiting and seeing how this piece of history is still actually operable even today, at least in a fashion where you can see how the equipment actually worked. It is a really, really cool place. So after we left, we got back on and took the short jaunt down the road through Hamilton to Shorty's Pizza. Now, I told you at the beginning, Carl and I believe this is the best pizza in Ontario, at least the best pizza that we've had. They make it all with really great ingredients that they import themselves. They age the dough for 3 days, so it's chewy, it's got a little bit of that tang to it, and you can see just a happy guy right here eating probably the best pizza he's had. And they even have their own beer, which I know a lot of places do nowadays, but it's just kind of a nice touch. And here's their menu right here. Now, if you do come down, there's not a lot of parking. Carl and I parked alongside the building here. We asked if we could, and they said yes. But sometimes you actually have to park on a side street and walk over to Shorty's. There's no parking lot there. Now, after we finished our pizza, well, we headed out and up the Kenilworth Cut. And we did this for a reason. The reservoir for the Steam Museum, I'm told, was initially in around the halfway mark up the Kenilworth Cut. And it's, I think, in this area here from what I was told by the interpreter. So you travel fairly high here, obviously. We're going back up the escarpment. And you can see you keep going up and up. They call it the Hamilton Mountain for a reason. And there's even a switchback halfway up that you have to take if you're going to the top of the mountain and going to be heading back towards Niagara Falls. And here's that switchback right here. It's a pretty tight little turn, and you can see it's still a really steep climb all the way up. The video here doesn't really do it justice in terms of how steep this really is, but as you can see, the views get better and better as you climb your way up to the top of the escarpment. Now, as we get to the top here, you can really see how they've had to really manipulate the traffic flow because of the escarpment impacting traffic design. And you can kind of see you have to almost do a complete S-turn around here just to get up onto the roads at the top of the hill here. So there's like a roundabout, and then we follow the top river road up at the very top. Again, just spectacular views of Lake Ontario and Hamilton. It's a really great ride. There's places to pull over and look, but it was just a great ride. It was a little bit hot this day. It was starting to get a little bit warm and unsettled, but at this time it was just really a beautiful day to be riding. So we just kept wandering, again, doing the left, right, heading back towards Niagara Falls, keeping the lake on the left. And we knew if we did that, we'd find our way home. And finally, we sort of ended up near Highway 20, which would take us into Fawn Hill, Ontario. And it kind of looked like it was getting a little bit cloudy. It had been hot all day. There was worries of thunderstorms, and sure enough, we got stuck in one. And I mean, it poured, absolutely poured down on us. At one point, it was hailing about the size of lima beans. And of course, you get peppered. I wasn't going to pull over and put on any rain gear at this point. We weren't that far from home. But you can see that windscreen of mine keeps my GPS nice and dry. I had no problems. I know I've had a couple people ask me about that. But you can see here, it was just pouring on us. I tried to duck in behind the windscreen, didn't really do a whole lot. You basically just have to put your head down and tough it out. And I think most of us that ride bikes know that. I've ridden in this kind of weather on a snowmobile before, and I'll tell you, that's even worse. This isn't too bad here. And you can really see it on the road here. It's really, really, really pounding on us. But it was refreshing at the very least. And you can kind of see as you look around, the sky looks like it's clearing up ahead. And finally we rode out of it. But we were pretty much soaked to the bone by this point. And the one interesting thing about this safari tank is it acts a little bit like a fairing. It keeps the wind off you. So you end up having to really stretch your legs out to dry your clothes off. And that's what we did. But you can see here, pretty much every stitch in these is wet. The coat itself's actually waterproof. The pockets in that aren't bad. The pants, though, I had the waterproof liners out of them. But eventually we arrived in Fawn Hill to sunny skies again, and worked and traversed our way across, and eventually over the Welland Canal again. At this point, the Allenberg Bridge. This is a lift bridge. I think there's 11 of them in total along the canal. I'd have to check that for sure. But we were lucky enough to get it while the bridge was down. And finally, we found our way back to Niagara Falls here, and Carl finally went on his way, and I headed home. This was a great trip, and I recommend it to anybody. The Steam Museum's interesting, and the pizza was fantastic. So until next time, I'm Dino for Dino's Tinker Shed. You have a great day, and I hope you get out and ride a little bit too.